individual gets to a point where they begin to ask themselves the question, who am I? And seemingly, as this question may stand, it has led people to actually think of how they should relate and their attitude towards life. Hope Teens has come to you yet again with another interesting and of course one topic that you will not want to miss. We just want to say thank you so much for having joined us this evening on yet another episode of Hope Teens, and today we are talking about, of course, one of the most important questions that we ask ourselves, who am I? And this is from the mother body of identity. In the studio today I have two beautiful ladies. Of course, like I always say, having ladies in the studio with me is always an honor because it's rare that you see them with me. So in the studio I have Annie Banda as well as Memory Siamubi, and today we are going to be educating each other, of course, on the big topic of identity. Many of you might be wondering and looking at yourself in a certain way, and you ask yourself, who am I? Am I qualified for society? Am I qualified for the world? What makes me relate towards people in the way that I do, and how best should I carry on? So join me again in this episode as we get to talk more and of course get to understand on what identity is all about. And of course, one of the first persons I'm going to talk to is Annie Banda. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm alright. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. You look too serious. You're scaring me right now. Good to have you in the studio.
Good to meet you in person.
Thank you so much. You look beautiful, by the way.
Thank you so much.
You should teach me how you do
it.
Okay, so today we're talking about identity. But before we could go there, I always have this thing. Probably one of my little ones are going to meet you out there. And of course, even the viewers who have joined us today will meet you and they'll be like, I've seen this person somewhere, but they really don't know you. So what would be, something that you want the viewers to know about you? Who is Annie Banda?
Well, that's one of the hard questions that one can ask, as though it sounds very simple. Annie is a child of God.
That is the very most important one.
Annie is a child of God, and what else? I can say that because being a child of God really can tell anyone to say, okay, this is where I belong to. I belong to the kingdom of heaven and all that. But also say I'm a good person. I love to be around people. I love to explore in finding out new ideas about life, and what can also help me in identifying who I really am.
Beautiful, beautiful. Hearing that you love being around people, and I look at you, you seem like an introvert who is jovial, but anyway, it is what it is. So today we're talking about identity, and I'm sure this is something that you have probably encountered before now, or something that you have gone through. Maybe you lost your identity at some point. So maybe you would just help us understand what does it mean when people say identity, because it's like it's who I am, but who are you? How would you define identity even before we go any further?
Okay, identity is very crucial because many people do not really know their identity. So we can define identity as one's sense in defining themselves in who they are, how they're perceived by the world at large.
Wow, and why do you think one should be obsessed in discovering their identity?
Why they should be obsessed in discovering their identity?
Yeah, because you just mentioned it's how the world would look at somebody.
Exactly.
So why should I be worried? Why should I take that as something I should consider to say, how does Annie look at me? Why should one struggle for that?
Okay, so when it comes to identity, most people usually tend to ask themselves to say, how is Faith able to view me? What thoughts does she have when she looks at me and all that? So everyone and every youth is usually obsessed with identity because they want to have a sense of belonging in the world, in the particular society that they live in, so that they can have an impact on the society that they're living in whatever things that they do.
Okay, so this is you having a sense of belonging, or maybe you've been noticed in a certain way because this is who you are. But before I can take it even down to my viewers, my teens who are watching you right now, I will probably want to ask you a question. Identity is something that is not really easy to build. You know, it's something that as one is growing, they need to discover it. Who am I? Of course, you say I'm a Christian, I'm a child of God. I think that is like one of the greatest identity you would ever have. But aside from that, how do people know you? Who are you? Aside from being a child of God, because even if you say I'm a child of God, it's like there's character in it. You know, so identity has got all your attitude, your character, and it has to be what you say you are is what should be portrayed. So maybe before we go down that road, is identity something that you have come across you as a human being at a personal level and say, who is Annie? And how did you get to know that, okay, this is Annie and this is what identifies me from faith?
Okay, so for me it was quite a tough journey to really get to know my identity and all that, because being an introvert and being a flake, I would isolate myself from my friends and maybe in some gatherings.
Yeah.
So it was so hard for me to even get to know who I really am. But at the point I had an encounter with Jesus Christ, you know, things began to change. By learning more of His Word and His instructions from the Bible, I began to really know who I really am, you know. I found out about my strengths, my weaknesses, okay, my core values, and noting them down, getting to note them down and working upon them. I began to build a strong self-esteem, because when you do not identify yourself at an early stage, it gets to impact you or having a strong influence on your self-esteem at a later stage in adulthood. So the earlier one gets to identify themselves and define themselves and get to understand who they really are, it really helps when they really grow up. Well, Annie is also a singer. I sing at church and most people know me for
As a
that.
singer?
Yes.
Okay, so when did you discover that? Did you grow up knowing that you can sing, or there was just a particular period of time when you were like, oh, I can actually sing?
Actually, I grew up singing, but having the zeal and courage to really stand for it, that yes, I can do it,
Came in after you discovered your
yes,
identity. Wow,
exactly.
beautiful. That is probably something that I was looking at. Now, for you, it took you to, it wasn't something from at a tender age. You had to start rediscovering who you were, and then you discovered a little bit more about yourself. And I'm sure this is something that we get to learn about ourselves every day. I don't think you fully know yourself today, do you?
No, not
There's
fully.
so there's still more to your
Yes.
to you knowing yourself, but there's something that you can say, okay, this is an attribute of my identity. People would know me for this. That is really beautiful. Now, is it necessary for one to know who they are?
It is very necessary for one to know who they really are, because like I said, if somebody knows who they really are, they'll be able to have a sense of belonging in society and be able to participate in the activities that happen around them.
Okay, so it is necessary to know who you are. So how can I know who I am?
How can you know who you are?
So this is a little child watching you out there, and they're like, okay, I'm just messy, I'm just Mary. But then I believe there's they're listening to you and they are eager on probably rediscovering themselves. Because when you are growing, for you to just have that mentality of saying, who am I think it doesn't click at a tender age. It takes somebody who's maybe, let's say, 15 and above, but probably now because of the smart kids that we have, it starts as early as 14. Simply because they see themselves, they are not fitting in certain groups, they are not fitting in certain activities. They'll start asking, okay, why me? So such questions are probably the same questions that would lead to somebody asking, okay, what is wrong with me? And as far as we are concerned, identity is simply, what makes you, who is you, that is your identity.
Exactly.
It's like a name tag. So somebody who's watching you out there, a teenager, and they're trying to find themselves, how would you tell them to say, okay, this is what can help you to figure out who you are, if you still don't know who you are?
Okay, first of all, society has a way in which it influences identity development, okay, and also when it comes to the people we hang around with, it could be our friends, our siblings, our parents. Definitely in a home, identity development begins from there. But of course, for someone who is out there, they need to look within themselves and explore. They begin to explore themselves. Yes, they need to start relearning themselves. Okay, like I said, they need to note down to say, okay, what are my qualities? What am I good at? What are my core values? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? When they begin to note down that, they need to start working on those points. They can be few. Of course, not everyone will be able to manage to even note down all those values and all that. But also they can be able to identify themselves with a group. It could be a church. It could be maybe a soccer team or a football club or anywhere else where they can have that sense of belonging, but not a place that is, I can call it
contradicting.
Yes, exactly. So for those who have quite some challenge in knowing themselves, they really need help. They need to seek help so that they can really know who they really are.
Okay, now we have put it at a personal level. Do you personally think society and people's preferences have actually given a positive and strong impact on people when it comes to identity?
When it comes to identity,
do you think the world or the society itself has contributed when it comes to an individual's personality or their identity per se?
Yeah, it has greatly contributed.
What are some of the things that you would pick out to say, okay, this guys has destroyed our generation, this is disturbing our teenagers and things are not okay? What would be some of the things that you would point out?
Okay, there are some things like there are certain phrases that are being used today where someone says, it is my life. No one can
tell me what to do.
Tell me what
to do.
Okay, no one can tell you what to do. It's your life and all that. So for most youths out there, they have even stopped regarding their elderly ones when they try to encourage them and help them in building their identity or their self-esteem, and also helping them in other life issues. Okay, so there are a lot of things out there that are causing most youths out there to have a negative impact on identity development. Okay, of course we have the growing technology that is growing and everything is on site, and
like
a child can be able to find anything they want, and if there's no parental control, then I don't know.
Everything is just...
Yes. So it's quite hard to even monitor identity development in most adolescents or youths because of the same thing.
And I think it's something that I've never heard of, the identity development. People talk about identity, but it has not been put out there. Probably this is why people are easily driven in things that really don't matter, because you don't know who you are. You're just
Exactly.
all over the place. It's like you're easily into things because. Do you think this identity can be developed in an instant? How long do you think identity can be discovered in a person and so they become super, effective and active, and what is the other word? To just become hands-on with it? Because I feel like identity is something that you need to nurture
Yes.
and monitor,
Yes.
if not each and every day.
Each and
Because
every day.
you say, for instance, let's say I drink,
Mhm.
and drinking has led me to things that I have not liked about myself. I will have to sit down. I'm not condemning those people who drink, but I'm just saying at a personal level. Like for me, let's say I drink, and because of drinking, I have come to actually realize that I can't control my drinking habits. They have led me to being using abusive language. They have led me to disrespecting people. They have led me to abandon my Bible in the time that I have forgot. So when I get to a point of, okay, this is not right, I need to start redesigning
Exactly.
my identity.
Mhm.
So how long do you think that can take?
Well, it's a gradual process.
It's a gradual process.
It can't happen instantly, but by daily trying to work out on those habits, one can be able to have a development in habits that will benefit them at the end of the day. So if one says identity development is just an instant process, then
They would be lying.
would be lying. Yeah. And someone will end up losing themselves in that event because they'll identify themselves in a different way that they needed not to be identified with.
Wow. Are you just joining us? You are watching our Hope Teams, of course, on Hope Channel Zambia. If you're just tuning in, thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget to reach us on our social media platforms, which is on Facebook as well as on YouTube. You can catch us, and of course, you can send in your comments and contributions and ask. I'm sure social media will be able to interact and also give our personal views on what we think about the topic. In the studio today, I have Annie as well as Memory. These are the two ladies who are going to be with me as we talk about identity. Are you out there and you're thinking of how to make your life better? It is never too late. Yeah. So identity is simply you asking yourself a question: who am I? It's like you finding yourself. This, of course, there's a character, there's attributes of life, and there's so many things that are involved. There are times where we have missed it because we are all not perfect. Trust me. You might have gone in a way that is not pleasing before you, and even before the sight of God, and that is number one. Anything that you do that does not bring glory and honor to the presence and sight of God, it is deemed as something wrong to do. So if you want to get your identity back, of course, you're a Christian and you're a child of God. And everything that you do as a Christian and a child of God should be something that preaches the gospel. Your life alone should be a living gospel, a living sermon. And most of us, we know, as the Adventists, we're always saying, be the sermon. And of course, if you're not an Adventist and you're watching us from wherever you may be, you are a Christian. You are a representative of God's kingdom and God's work. So if you feel you have lost your identity at some point, it's never too late. Ask yourself a question. Remember, society sometimes may make too much noise for you. Sit down, rethink, regain your confidence, and regain your identity by simply getting down on your knees. And every day, it is a gradual and growing process. This is something that I have learned from Annie today. To say identity is something that you learn each and every day. You are not going to say, I'm going to stop drinking, and it will happen tomorrow you won't drink. Trust me. You will say you won't drink today, but tomorrow the craving is going to hit you because this is something that you have been doing for some time. So we are saying you can change. you can change and you can decide to be who you want to be today and still become that person. The process may be tough, the road might be tough because it means you need to get rid of certain things. And if you're still a young child and you're watching us and you're thinking, oh, who am I? The first step that you need to do is look at yourself and tell yourself, I am a daughter of Zion, I am a son of God, I am a daughter of God. And everything that you need to do, the Bible has all its guidelines, and it will tell you this is how you have to live as a child of God. And your identity built in Christ can never be missed. Am I lying?
You're not lying.
Are you a master guide?
No, I'm not.
Supposedly people have here master guides, and they'll give all the lessons, but today we are equal, you and me. But basically that's so. We said identity is a body of all these things: your attitude, your character, your personality. Now, what is personality?
So personality is, or we can say these are differences in characteristics, patterns that have to do with how one thinks, how they feel, and how they behave.
How can we relate personality from character? How are these two related? So we have identity, personality, and character. How do we balance this? Because I feel these are all human attributes.
Yes.
You have your personality, you have your character, and you have the identity. How do we marry? Is it marrying is two people? So how do we merge? Is merging also marriage? The English there, but how do they synchronize each other?
Okay, so these terms are not far apart from each other, because character is the qualities of a person or a group, and we can also say character, these are qualities that are developed by virtuous behavior. So someone will say, I don't like that girl's character. Okay, so how you carry yourself in public, how you carry yourself wherever you go, will tell people a lot about you.
Wow, beautiful. Now, I don't know if maybe I did wrong to ask about master guide. Are you familiar with the temperaments, the 4 temperaments? At least I know someone.
Sanguine?
I know melancholy. And which one?
Choleric. Phlegmatic.
Can you please explain on those 4? Because I feel they also have a significant role to play in our daily activities as humans. Identity also comes with all those temperaments. If you know your temperament, you will probably know on what can suit you and what can suit you. And people will probably know how far you can go and how far you can go. So like for you, after behind closed doors, you should tell me which one is your temperament, and I probably can tell to say, okay, this is how far I can go with. And can you help us on the 4 temperaments probably to understand?
Okay, before I even go to the 4 temperaments, let me connect it this way. We need to define ourselves in God, knowing that He has created us in His own image and likeness. Okay, so we need also to learn and figure out our temperaments. Okay, so if per se you are sanguine, I need to know how I'm going to relate with you so that I do not injure your let me say your pride, or I do not injure anything that makes you strong. So like we said, there's the sanguine, the choleric, the melancholic, and the phlegmatic. The first one, the sanguine, this is someone who is talkative, outgoing. They can easily interact with people, and when they're given a task to do, they're able to finish it even before the deadline. Okay, these the sanguines, and we can also liken them to air. Okay, air is everywhere. Even where we are here, there's air. There's a mixture of gases. Okay, so that's how sanguines are. They're able to dominate everywhere. Yeah. So we have the cholerics. The cholerics are short-tempered. These are short-tempered people. Once you just step on their toes and they're not happy with it, and they'll be able to, fire the shot. Okay, so we can also liken them to fire. Okay, because when you set up fire in a particular place, it's able to burn down anything. Okay, and then the other thing is, the other temperament is phlegmatic. Phlegmatics tend to be very peaceful, they're reserved, they're slow in doing things. Okay, they take their time when it comes to doing tasks. Then the melancholics are also reserved type of people. They're calm. Okay, for these guys, it's really hard for them to make friends because they're very analytical. Yeah, and it's hard to get them convinced. An example of cholerics in the Bible, we can talk about the Pharisees, the scribes. Okay, for them, they are good at keeping laws, rules. When you say don't do this, they will not do it. Okay. Yeah.
Beautiful. I must say it has been a beautiful and amazing, chat with you. But before I would let you go, I want you to, just look at your viewers right there and tell them what you think about identity, and just your advice to them when it comes to rediscovering yourself and knowing who you are, and just being confident about yourself because you have discovered who you are and what you're capable of doing.
Okay, so identity development, or knowing who you are, is very important because it helps you to have a strong self-esteem. It helps you to have confidence in what you do. Also, when you get to know who you are, you'll be able to know what you can be able to do best and be one person who is of more beneficial to your society and to wherever you belong to. Knowing your identity in Christ is very vital because Christ says, I have called you into this light out of the darkness, and He saved us from eternal condemnation, and we're called as His sons and daughters, heirs of His kingdom. That's a true sense of identity. So we need to learn more of Christ, and we can learn more about ourselves by searching the scriptures, learning of God every day.
Wow, thank you so much for having joined me here. I must say I'm blessed, and at least I've grasped part of my identity. We wish to have you again. Okay, so if you're just joining us, we're still on identity, and that was Annie Banda on giving us the views when it comes to identity. And of course, she did give us a brief history of how she rediscovered herself, and now she's a proud, self-esteemed, super confident singer. But before, I'm sure even when she was talking, you would tell to say, okay, this one, I don't know which part of temperament we're going to give her. So stay tuned, we'll be right back shortly after this break.
Hello, this is Gabriel. You're watching Half Teens right here on Half Channel Zambia. Television that is live will bring to you a very important question today. There comes a time in one's life when we ought to be, when we ought to know who we are and what we are, and how people call us, how people recognize us, how people define us, and how we define ourselves, who we are. This is a very important question that we bring to the street today, because we as Optins believe that answers are with the people, answers are right here in the field. And today I feel like, who am I? I don't know who I am, but the topic is identity. So join me on the other side as we interact with a number of people that are giving giving us answers to the important question, who am I? Who are we? Who is me? That kind of English. Of course, we're looking at identity. Stay tuned and enjoy the clips.
We are talking about what defines me as an individual, what defines me as an elder of the church. How do I conduct myself? Okay? How do people look at me in the neighbors? The conduct that I carry myself with. So you can only be identified with what you do. So even a child, you can identify your child through the way you are bringing up your child. So you identify that child in the actions or the doings that that child is doing. That is what identification is all about. You identify yourself in the works that you do. So as Adventists, we identify ourselves as a Protestant church. Okay, we identify ourselves as a Protestant church, the church that believes in the second coming of our Lord and Savior, the church that believes in the three angels message, that we need to spread it out there. And what is the overall objective? The overall objective is to make sure that each and everyone is included in the plan of redemption.
Well, an identity is a symbol or a representative of who you are, what you choose to believe and what you believe in. For example, being a Christian is an identity. What you reflect, you follow the footsteps of Christ, your Savior. That's one way we can tell of one having an identity. That's a simpler way. Stay tuned.
The definition of identity, it just describes who one is, like identifying the sex, the name, the status, etc., etc. That's what describes what identity is. Personality is who you are, who you truly are. Like, I'll give an example on myself. I think personally, I'm someone who's social, who likes mingling around with everyone. I'm vocal. I'm very vocal.
Identity is who or what something is. And identity is important because this is how you define yourself or how others will define you.
One which is identity. What does identity mean to me? Identity to me as a person is what defines me to be different from somebody else. An identity is an aspect of me which separates me from everybody else. Then I'll talk about the importance of discovering identity. It's important to discover identity because it helps us to reach our full potential. Without knowing our identity, we'll be doing things casually. But once we discover that identity, then we'll be able to face everything with a positive mindset and with a fulfilled mindset. And lastly, I'll talk about character. Character for me is something that's very important. Like what I've said, identity, discover identity and what it means to have an identity, then comes character. I'm able to build my character if I know my identity well. So my character blends everything about me. It makes me stand out different from the other person, thus providing a uniqueness in the world.
identity, personality, and character. How are these things important in ourselves? Why is it important for me to ask myself, who am I? And what attribute does it bring in my life? If you're just joining us, we're still talking on identity. We want to say welcome back. I hope you did learn one or two things. Of course, you can reach us on our Facebook and social media platform, which is YouTube and Facebook as well. And if you're just joining us, I had Annie Banda earlier before the break, who was here with me, and we had some interesting conversation when it comes to identity. And I did tell you earlier that today is packed with beautiful and wonderful ladies. And now to conclude the last segment of our show today, I have Memory Sia Movie. Hi, Memory.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Actually, I'm comforted that I have 4 eyes next to me as well. Annie made me feel like I'm the only blind one, but it's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me too.
Okay, I hope you're enjoying the show so far.
Yeah, so far Annie brought up some good insights there.
Okay, interesting. So we are talking about identity today, and of course we did mention a few things that are attached to identity. That was personality and character, and of course with the big question of people saying, who am I? Because that is basically what identity is all about. You having to know who you are, you having to know of course not really having to worry about society, but I think society has to acknowledge you by a certain thing. It's kapena dress chikulu, Jessica Green, such kind of thing. So that is all identity. But before I can, proceed, me and my mouth, we can just go on and on and on and on. So before I take the show, you will probably tell the listeners, our teenagers who are watching you there, who is this Memory?
Well, I usually don't like to be asked that question because I feel it's a packed question. But Memory is someone who loves being around people.
Okay.
I love to learn new things.
Okay.
I love to take up new challenges. Yeah, and just be there, enjoy life.
Beautiful. I'll find. I think I'll need to ask Annie to give me a PDF document on temperaments, so that I should know which one is you, whether you are someone, because that for her I think I found her category, but I'm yet to find your own category as well. So we have talked about identity this far. We have broken it down into the importance of having somebody to discover themselves and just know themselves. So my first question to you is, what is identity crisis and why is it so impactful?
Well, so when we talk of identity crisis, earlier Annie was talking about discovering yourself and all that. So in discovering yourself, there comes in identity crisis. So this is Memory here, and there's a Memory that she wants to be in future. So between now and then, there's the in-between of me discovering myself, trying to see myself where I will be tomorrow or in the near future.
Okay.
So the in-between there comes in identity crisis. This is a teen show. So when you talk of teenagers, the process of them when they're discovering who they are, they're growing up, the developments that are happening within their bodies, the changes that are taking place. They are trying to define themselves and get accustomed to what is happening and all that. Yes, what is this happening? Who am I? And it brings in that identity crisis. As they complete their education, there's the career aspects that comes in. I want what do I want to be in future? You get it? So there is that them trying to discover themselves, where they want to be. So during that time, and I must mention that this does not only happen in adolescents, it can also happen in adults. Okay, so now this can be triggered by probably a traumatic event that can happen to anybody, a loss of a loved one, you losing employment and such things. People tend to start asking themselves, what is happening to me? Who am I? Am I not rightly positioned in society for me to be experiencing all this? They start questioning. The moment you start questioning the who am I question, it brings in all this crisis of you trying to know who you really are.
Okay. So if I get it right, I hope my viewers will follow. So you say identity crisis is the gap in between you and who you want to become. So this could be me just knowing, okay, this is me making a decision that this is the faith that I want to be. So this is Faith here. She's Faith. but she wants to be the president of Zambia. So between me and them, in between, is what you're calling identity crisis.
Yes, so here is Faith, who wants to be a president of Zambia, and she, let me narrow it down to something more realistic. Here is me, who wants to be a nurse. I want to be a banker. I want to be an accountant. Okay.
So you mean me being a president is not realistic?
No, it is realistic. It is realistic. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
It is a realistic dream. Everybody, even me, I'd like to be a president of, first female president of Zambia. It wouldn't be a bad idea.
Don't carry my dream there.
Yes. So now, in you wanting to be what you want to be, there are other people that will come. Why do you want to be a nurse? Eh? They don't even get paid so much.
So we can say you get the battle within.
The battle within. Then you start. Everybody of us wants good money, right? So now, if I become a nurse, I won't even be getting much, and all that. So there is all these negatives that are coming because other people do not approve of what you want to be. So they'll come and discourage you. And in you trying to reconcile what they are talking about and what you want to be, you find yourself in confusion. And that is what we're calling crisis now.
Okay, so then how does one discover themselves and resolve their identity crisis? Because I'm bound to believe that when you talk about this identity crisis, it is something that if you are not strong, you can easily lose yourself along the way. So then how does one get to discover who they really are and resolve the identity crisis?
Yeah, I like what you say, that along the way you may lose yourself. It brings about stress, anxiety. Some people, even it affects your relationships. You're just so withdrawn and all that. So how do you resolve that? So as we talk about identity crisis, for me, something that has worked out is you need to have a strong support system. Family, for me, plays an important role. So I think there's a time in my life I was going through an identity crisis. All right, I'm in college. I am doing my studies, and my friends feel what I'm studying, I'm not supposed to be studying that. I'm supposed to take another profession.
Bound to ask, what are you studying?
Okay, so I'm a banker by profession. Okay. So then I was studying banking and finance. So then my friends thought I was good to be in the media industry, not being a banker. They would always tell me, you're in a wrong profession. And I remember in my first year, when we went on break first semester, I was so troubled. I nearly stopped my banking and career because there was that confusion. These people are convincing me that I'm supposed to be in the media industry, but here, I also love what I'm doing. So what helped me overcome that? My family. Strong support system. They believed in what I was doing, and the career path that I had chosen. So they just encouraged me to go with it. If media is for you, you can still do it. You can still do both of them. And there I was. I pursued my banking career. And later on, if you care to know, the same family supported me into trying out the media. It's my brother that took my application later to Prime TV. And when I submitted my program proposal, they liked it. And there I was, a presenter of some program.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So what led me to actually even discover that I can do media is because my family believed in what I wanted to do. All right. So you need to be surrounded yourself with people that support you. So my plea would be to families, parents, siblings, develop that culture of supporting one another. If someone says, I want to do arts, in our country, they don't know, nobody really wants their child to do that because they feel there isn't so much money, and we're coming from such a background. Don't just say, and drama, you will not even excel in life. No, you don't do that. Sit with them, explain to them. So tell me, what do you like about this? Why do you want to do this? Guide them properly like that. You will help them.
So
okay. Yes. And when it comes at a personal level, get to know things that interest you. All right. Do the things that interest you. What is it that you love to do? As Annie earlier alluded to, identity is an ongoing thing. Discovering yourself.
It really is.
It's not a once-off. Just because I'm a banker, then that's it, that's who I am. You keep discovering yourself. So engage in activities that you like. Surround yourself with people that gives you positive vibes. So for me, that stands out really.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. So mainly people tend to find who they are in a group setup.
Yeah.
For some people. Now, I feel a personal identity discovery or identity development is vital, because in your own space and time you will be able to know what differentiates you from the others. And when you have discovered that, it's like you have a different drive when it comes to you doing it.
Yeah.
Even if you find somebody else is doing it, because it was you who sat, you thought about it, you know what you're capable of doing, you're going to have a different drive. But then we have our teenagers and of course the young ones, and maybe of course the elderly ones are part and parcel of this. You see a group of people. I always want to use something that is practical and something that is in our reach. Let's look at restaurants. How many people are running that? A lot of them. Let's look at saloons. How many people are running that? Now we have e-commerce. How many people are doing that? So people have gotten to find themselves in doing things because a group of people has taken or has embarked on that route. Do you think group identity is good and is the way to go?
Group identity is not bad. It is good. So each one of us, in one or another, we are associated with a certain group. All right, you identified by your religion. It's a social setup.
It is.
Okay, your colleague, your workmates, that's a group. Okay, so it is not a bad thing. Every one of us, it's a natural thing to have that sense of belonging. All right, so belonging to a group actually helps you to have that feeling fulfilled. I belong somewhere. All right, so groups also will help you discover more about yourself. So if you identify yourself with a certain group and that group really accept, because then for me to say I belong to the SDA church, I belong to this group, that group should also do what? Accept me. You get it?
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm not going to align myself to a group that does not accept me. So if I'm going to say I belong to that group, there's that acceptance from that group. And when I'm in that group, there's that sense of belonging, there's that sense of care. We are people that believe in one common thing, and we are helping shape each other's dreams, characters, and all that. So when the practical example is, let's say when someone is sick, they lose their loved one, you are not just poor, you're going through some issue in life, and there comes probably your workmates come to visit you. How does that make you feel?
Makes you feel loved.
It makes you feel loved. Those are the benefits of belonging to a group, because when you belong somewhere, you want to feel you are loved.
Perfect.
You are counted.
Let me put, sorry to cut you short. Let me put it this way. I'm Faith. I have not yet discovered my identity. I don't know me. But then I just see a group of people and say, I think I love Annie's hair salon. Let me go and do salon as well. And I go there because I've just seen Annie doing it. I want to do it because that's where everybody else is going. Yeah? And there's this, that is the first scenario when it comes to groups. Because I'm trying to relate the two groups someone can find themselves in. So here's a teenager. They don't know what they're good at yet, but they love what the other person is doing. And then they say, okay, my friend is dancing, let me go and dance. So they go to dancing because they saw somebody else dancing.
Okay.
And the second group is, I'm here, I have known or have discovered that I love to dance. I want to dance. And then I identify a group and I take myself there. So these are two different, So it's like when I get into the group of, you said being in a group will bring that, you are going to get different people's views.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think is the advantage or disadvantage of being in either of these groups? Because trust me, there are people who are struggling with that. I opened a restaurant because I saw my neighbor open one and they are doing fine. And those who say I opened a restaurant because I'm passionate about cooking, what do you think is the conflict between these two decisions?
So if I'm understanding you clearly, there's one person who doesn't know what they are, who they are yet. They associate themselves with a group because they've seen their friend doing that.
Exactly.
The other one loves what they are doing and they associate with the right group because that group is doing that.
Yes.
So in discovering oneself, you keep trying. Okay, you keep trying, but when you keep trying, you really need to have a limit. I think it would drive me back to your conversation with Annie on character, which is quite important. A person having values in life, it plays an important role in identifying yourself. So once you get to know your values, you know your limits of doing things. So if you're going to be doing things because everyone else is doing it, you are struggling there.
That is what I wanted.
You are struggling because you cannot just be going where Annie is going, I'll go. Where Faith is going, I go. You don't have, what can I say? You don't know where you stand.
You don't have a drive.
You don't have that drive. And you will keep doing that until you never discover yourself.
That is what I wanted.
Yeah. You keep doing that until you never discover yourself. So even as we say we keep learning, that's why it is important. First, start by identifying what you like. Annie earlier said, identify your strengths, your weaknesses. So even as I think probably I can belong to that group, if I go in there, because I should have an idea of what I'm looking for at the end of the day, even as I'm just trying. If I say I don't fit in, let me withdraw.
Beautiful, beautiful. Are you struggling with knowing your identity and just you're wondering where to go? Don't do things because your friend is doing it, but it would be best, more helpful, productive, and even more interesting for you and productive if you actually know that what you are doing is what makes you happy. All in all, the stance and the story of the day is know who you are, know your identity, marry your identity with personality and character, and then you're going to have your true way on how to make yourself a happier and of course a productive person. If you're just joining us, you're still tuned into Hope Teens, and today we're talking about identity. Don't forget to reach us on our social media platforms, of course on Facebook and on YouTube. And today we are still on identity, and I'm talking to Memory Sia movie on identity. Soon we're going to be concluding, but before we can, we still have a few questions and more conversations to go. In a little while, Memory, how can we marry identity with salvation?
How can we marry that? Wow. We are identified. We talked about you can be identified by your religion, right? And we're identified as Christians. So if you are going to be identified as a Christian, that tells me you're living a Christian life. You have traits of a Christian. And if you're a Christian, that tells me you believe in Jesus Christ. All right? And now because you believe in Jesus Christ, you know that he's the only way and the truth to life. You will only gain salvation when you're identified with Christ. All right? So there is that relationship between identity and salvation. The only people that will be saved into God's kingdom are those that do his will. Yes. So what we need to do as Christians is get to know, as we are Christians, what is expected of us. We are identified as Christ, and if we're going to identify ourselves with Christ, we need to know what is Christ's character. That is what we are supposed to portray.
That is our
as
identity,
Christian.
actually.
Yes, that's our identity. That is our identity in Christ. Once we live a Christ-like life, salvation is guaranteed to us, and that we cannot separate from. It's inseparable, I should say. Yeah.
Not cutting you short, but just a question to connect with that. How do we develop a Christ-like character? Because we're saying identity is, we have character and personality, or subs of identity. So how do we get this Christ-like character?
For me, it takes me to Philippians. I think if I get it right, it should be Philippians 2 verse 5. Let this mind that is in Christ be in you also. Only then are you going to develop that Christ-like character when you have the mind of Christ.
Right.
And how do you develop this mind of Christ? It's only by spending time with Him. Yes, you need to spend more time with Him. How do you spend more time with Christ? You need to meditate upon His Word. We have a guide, which is the Bible, that shows us what is expected of us, what kind of Christ that we are following, His character, and so once we have that, for me, we're good to go.
I love that one. I think most of us think that character of God or God Himself can be known by having a vision. So you're sleeping and then God just comes, this is me. But you're just sleeping, or maybe the pastors will tell you to say, this is how God is. But I feel you can discover and know who God really is if you dedicate yourself to His Word. Because I know that the Word itself, the Bible, gives you every character of God. It just describes who God is.
Of course, it does describe who God is, and some may feel like probably we are being too theoretical, but probably we should remind each other that Christ came on this earth in human form, and He lived as a man, and He experienced pain. He experienced hunger, He was suffering. So even as everything that we're going through, He experienced. So when we say we have that
Except
Christ,
COVID.
of course He never experienced COVID, but even through COVID times, because He was here and understands our suffering, even when we go through all these hard times in life, we should be able to portray a Christ-like reaction to each and everything that we go through. If we're going to cry, it is normal to cry. It is okay normal to feel pain. That in everything that we do,
I think even Jesus Christ did cry.
He cried.
Apparently for Him,
why
it was
have you
actually
forsaken
blood.
me, my Father?
I love
questioned
that.
his father. He
I
did.
love that.
So if I'm going to feel pain and say, God, why have you forsaken me? I think He's going to understand me because He's been there.
I love what you have said, and I hope the viewers and the listeners, you have as much as I have loved it, you love it to say Christ lived on earth as human.
Yes.
That was a symbol and a sign to live for us who are here humans, to say
Yes.
it is possible to live and lead the Christ-like life.
It is.
Of course we cannot live like Christ, but Christ-like.
Christ-like, yes.
Because we are, we're sinning, but He showed it. Is it the pain? There's hope. Is it the sickness? There's hope. Is it confusion? There's hope. Remember, He said sound mind is what He wants for us. So I love that one. Before we conclude, I have one, of course, question for you. What do you think the church should do so that young people can be identified with the church? Because I feel the identity that when we look at the church setups now, I feel we haven't really gotten to a point where we acknowledge people's identity as much as they should, if I may put it like that. Mostly what is done is the master guide, the adventurer, the shine. This is a group, it is a group of people. But what more do you think can be done so that identity can be shown in the church towards us?
All right, so when I look at our church setup,
How can we be defined?
I still feel the church has put up good programs to help our youths or adolescents identify themselves
in the church.
Because if you followed the Adventist youth curriculum very well, you find that it has got very good lessons outlined there and activities that will help the youth identify themselves with the church. And probably additionally to what the church is doing, we need more engagement to speak to the realities of life.
That is very true.
We need more engagement to speak to the realities of life and how the youth can cope with that. We are living in a very dynamic world. The youth are exposed to a whole lot of things.
That is very true.
A whole lot of things to harm them. And if not guided properly, it's just going to destroy them. And as it has already destroyed others, There's need to engage in talks to do with drug abuse. We need to do personality talks. The church needs to embrace that and speak to it in a Christian way, so that even as the youth are going through all these stages, they will be able to tell that even as I'm going through this crisis, it is possible for me to overcome it through Christ.
That is very true. And when you say that, I feel like in church there's more silent on what people are going through because the church doesn't talk about it. And because I have been, let's talk about sexual abuse. Trust me, there's a lot of young girls who are being abused out there, even boys, basically.
Yes.
But the church cannot come out to, I can't come out to the church and say I have been sexually abused. Why? Because there's no environment that is going to protect me. It's either going to an elder, or I have to go to the, what do you call them again? The shepherd, the
shepherdess,
you know, but Dorcas mothers. I go to them and
they
they open, and it's like even when I'm going to open up, for me it will be a very big battle because I'm thinking, is it an abomination? Why? Because there's not been enough environment to talk about such things, and so we're just holding on. That is very, very, very beautiful. Winding up, what would be the last words to your viewers who are watching and listening to you today on the topic of identity?
All right, to the viewers out there, Christ created you in his image and in his likeness. So humanity was created with the sense of identity. The sense of identity, and as such, you should know that what matters in life is what God thinks of you. And your true identity is found in Christ. And when it comes to what you can do, the one verse that really keeps me is, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That verse is so it doesn't limit you to what you can do. So you should always believe that in whatever you want to do in life, as long as you believe in yourself, you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength.
Thank you so much, Memory, for having come through today. I'm really blessed, and I must say it was a lesson. I wish to have you back again.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you so much for having stayed with us. That was the topic on identity. I hope you have enjoyed and learned. And of course, if you are just knowing about this is Hope Teens. It comes to your screen every Sunday at 17 hours. A very big thank you and warm-heartedly gratitude to Annie Banda and Memory Siamuri, who came through today on just helping us understand on the topic of identity. I just hope and pray that we have been able to educate and help somebody out there. I, for one, I have been helped. I just want to say thank you so much also to my producer and director, Mr. PJ Kosa, and to the entire Hope Channel crew. Until next time, I'm your host, Faith Malango. Bye-bye and stay blessed.